Hello, everyone, and welcome to our session. My name is Roshni Gupta, and I lead product marketing for Azure Core Infrastructure. Joining me today will be my colleagues, Jeff Woolsey and Amy Collier, to discuss our topic today. How can businesses migrate their infrastructure to the cloud and stay secure? Well, digital transformation initiatives continue to stay in the fast lane. And as our customers have told us, the cloud continues to be a bastion of safety and innovation in these times of new risks and new rules. So what are these new risks? First, a highly complex and heterogeneous IT estate. Businesses wish to leapfrog the cost and complexity of a patchwork of point products and vendors and truly benefit from a cloud-native ecosystem. In this current macroeconomic environment, businesses want to optimize their investments to offset rising costs and outmaneuver any recession. Finally, security. Security is a top-of-mind risk. In fact, security has never been more critical. Why is that? Today, 87% of businesses are embracing hybrid and multi-cloud. Security and compliance teams have to race to safeguard identities, devices, data, and applications across cloud platforms. An increasingly complex regulatory landscape makes risk assessment and remediation difficult. Infrastructure is code today. Did you know that greater than 95% of cloud breaches can be traced back to preventable misconfigurations, mismanagement, open source code vulnerabilities, and exposed sensitive data in storage buckets? And most importantly, all organizations wish to unleash their developers to build compelling and compliant applications, and security shouldn't slow down our developers. Cloud migration is not a one-size-fits-all proposition. In our time today, we'll talk about how Azure can help you de-risk and meet you where you are in your cloud journey. Azure provides holistic, best-in-class security powered by AI for your cloud stack. Let's take a deeper look into a comprehensive and multi-layered security platform. It starts with foundational security of our team and physical data centers. Did you know that Microsoft plans to invest $20 billion in security in the next 5 years? It has greater than 8,500 dedicated security professionals and analyzes over 65 trillion global signals every day. Wow. Microsoft also has 100 compliance certifications, more than any other cloud provider, so you can feel confident that compliance is covered. We then move into our best-in-class cloud-native security solutions. First, Azure is the only leading public cloud that offers cloud-native application protection platform, CNAPP. Get end-to-end protection with Defender for Cloud. Unify your security posture management and threat protection across your AWS and Google clouds as well. You can proactively discover risk with contextual information about your development to runtime workloads, including VMs as well as storage. And all of this is native to Azure. You just have to enable the capability. Next, Microsoft Sentinel. Azure is also the first public cloud to enable a cloud-native SIEM, a security and information event management solution in its portal. Microsoft Sentinel helps you collect security data across your enterprise, gets you all the correlated insights powered by AI to help your SOC respond to the threats faster. Azure Confidential Computing. Microsoft continues to be a leader in confidential computing, collaborating with members of the Confidential Computing Consortium, such as AMD, Intel, and NVIDIA. Azure Confidential Computing helps organizations in highly regulated industries protect their most sensitive data, and with no code changes to their applications. GitHub integration. Today, as I said, infrastructure is code. Enterprises need to shift left. The earlier we can identify a security issue, the easier it is to fix. By integrating the developer tools such as GitHub repos and Jenkins, you can spot security issues before they hit your production environment. A stitch in time saves 9, as they say. Now I would like to double-click into how Azure Arc brings these built-in, modern, and holistic security capabilities to your hybrid and multi-cloud environment. Azure Arc is a bridge that extends the Azure platform to secure, view, organize, and govern IT inventory anywhere. This unification into a single pane of glass increases security, visibility, and governance of your entire multi-cloud estate. And by consolidating tools and vendors, you can ultimately save on costs, allowing you to maximize your existing investments in IT security and bring Azure into your environment. With Azure Arc, you can take advantage of the same consistent cloud-native tools like Microsoft Defender for cloud and Microsoft Sentinel. And you can gain consistent visibility and establish compliance across your multi-cloud environment with Azure Monitor and Azure Policy. Gain a single pane of glass visibility in the Azure portal. Your IT organization will have a consistent set of management tools to simplify management, ease training, and ultimately save you costs. These Azure differentiated capabilities truly meet you where you are and bring you cloud-native services to wherever you run your workloads. Now, I'll pass it on to Jeff to talk about how you can use Azure for your distributed, hybrid, and multi-cloud environments today.
Thanks, Roshni. Security is just one important aspect of Arc, and Arc does so much more to help our customers manage their IT environments. With Azure Arc, we're providing a consistent set of tools and services for you to extend cloud technology across your distributed infrastructure from cloud to edge. Azure Arc helps you do this by delivering 4 key capabilities. Building cloud-native apps anywhere, number 1. Number 2, leveraging data insights from the cloud to the edge. Number 3, securing and governing your entire digital estate. And finally, meeting your regulatory and connectivity needs. Let's dive into these pillars, starting with building cloud-native apps anywhere. Now, for an application to be portable, it needs to be more than just packaging and shipping code. You need cloud services coupled with the container infrastructure and integrated with DevOps practices and tooling to deploy, secure, and operate. With Azure Arc-enabled Kubernetes, our goal is to ensure that you are successful with your Kube investments. Regardless of whether it's AKS or third-party Kubernetes solutions like Rancher or OpenShift, Azure Arc works with all of them. You can build your custom container-based applications on any platform with reduced complexity and flexibility of choice by leveraging Azure Arc. Now, we recognize that it can be a challenge managing the deployment of these apps and databases across environments. To help here, Azure Arc leverages GitOps and policy-driven deployments so you can get an at-scale, consistent deployment experience. And finally, you can unlock the power of Azure's cloud-native security, governance, and monitoring solutions to ensure security and compliance for all your apps, regardless of where they run. Next, let's discuss how you can harness data insights from cloud to edge with Azure Arc-enabled data services. With Arc-enabled data services, we bring the best of Azure with its cloud data management capabilities to any infrastructure, no matter where that infrastructure resides. This could be your existing on-premises environment, in other public clouds, and even at the edge, like we've seen with our retail and manufacturing customers. These services can run anywhere and deliver a streamlined experience across your data workloads. Here's how. Azure Arc-enabled data services deliver an always up-to-date experience. End of support can be a thing of the past. You can benefit from an evergreen SQL environment with the newest features and automated updates without downtime to maximize efficiencies and minimize disruptions. You get industry-leading multi-layered protection with built-in security. With comprehensive encryption, including transparent database encryption and always encrypted, as well as Azure role-based access control and policy, your data is protected by powerful on-premises and Azure security capabilities. You can optimize the performance of your applications by scale up and down based on your application need. No downtime required. You can realize cost efficiencies by paying for only what you use and eliminate licenses that are often based on peak expected usage. With Azure Arc, your teams can leverage the tools they are already familiar with. That consistency means a vastly simplified DevOps experience by reducing overhead. You can deploy a 3-replica SQL-managed instances with full HA in 2 minutes with a single click, compared to hours. Gain a unified view into your query performance, storage capacity, and error logs using dashboards directly from the built-in monitoring. All these features are fully supported even without direct and continuous connection to Azure. So, from the core of your data center to the middle of anywhere, you'll have what you need to keep your database's workloads just running. Now, let's discuss security and governance across environments. With Azure Arc, you can take advantage of cloud-native tools for security management to help you understand your current security situation and take necessary actions to improve. Second, you can take advantage of cloud-based threat detection, response, and analytics that are specific to workloads. And finally, you can use Azure Arc to enable the central operation and governance of diverse environments. This makes it easy to adapt to changing requirements and compliance standards through dynamic visibility, compliance, and audit. Now, rather than talk about consistent management, let me just show you. Here we are in Azure looking at my account. Notice this is displaying all my Azure Arc resources. Here in the top section, you can see I have access to 8 Azure Stack HCI clusters. These clusters range from 2 to 8 nodes and all reside in the East US Azure region. If we look below, you can see I have access to numerous Kubernetes apps. Notice that these apps are running in the Eastern US, UK South, France, and Central US regions. But there's more. Notice that at the bottom here, we have page 1 of 2, so let's go to the next page. On page 2, you can see I have a list of servers. Are these Windows servers? Linux? The answer is yes. We can see them all right here. Now, up to now, I've shown a list view, but let's head up to the View menu in the right-hand corner and switch to Summary View. Take a good look. You now have a visual representation of all my resources running around the world. Azure Stack HCI clusters, Kubernetes apps, and Windows and Linux servers. Everything I've just shown you here is available at no additional cost. Arc enabling a server costs nothing. Think about it. All you need to do is Arc enable your Windows and Linux servers, and you can see them anywhere around the world. Now, speaking of management, if you look at the life cycle of applications and resources in your digital estate, that life cycle encompasses aspects like security, monitoring, automation, update management, change tracking and inventory, configuration management, log analytics, backup, and more. Wouldn't it be great if you could automatically and consistently have these services hooked up to your apps? Well, you can with Azure Automanage. With Azure Automanage, you reduce day-to-day VM management tasks with optimized automated operations across the entire lifecycle of dev, test, and production virtual machines in Azure and Azure Arc-enabled scenarios. Automanage provides simplified configuration of virtual machines anywhere, automated operations for continuous security and management at scale, innovative capabilities for Windows Server on Azure, such as orchestrating hot patching. Now, you may be thinking that this sounds super complicated. Well, let me show you just how easy it is to enable Automanage for your servers. Here we are in Automanage machines. You can see which machines you currently have enabled with Automanage, the configuration profile being used, and their current status. Now I'd like to add additional servers to Automanage. Let me show you just how easy this is. I'll hit Enable on existing machine, and this is where you can choose the configuration profile you want to use. By default, we include Azure Best Practices for production and dev test. I can also review the Azure Best Practices here for production, or use this dropdown to look at the dev test equivalent. I'm going to use the default profile using Azure Best Practices for production. Next, in the machine view, and if I have a lot of machines, I can easily filter the machines by name. In my case, I'll pick a few on the first page, review and create, and confirm, and that's it. I have just enabled Azure Automanage for these servers using the production profile, which automatically enables machine insights monitoring, anti-malware, update management, change tracking and inventory, Azure automation, log analytics, and more. Azure Automanage, providing Azure best practices services that help enhance reliability, security, and management for your machines automatically. So that's Azure Automanage, where you can simplify and optimize IT management with automation. Now, let's switch gears and discuss Azure VMware Solution. Azure VMware Solution provides you with VMware vSphere clusters built from dedicated bare metal Azure infrastructure. All provisioned clouds have VMware vCenter Server, vSphan, vSphere, and NSXT Data Center. One of the main benefits is that if you're already using VMware on-premises and want to move to the cloud, your IT team continues to use all the same tools and process that they're accustomed to. With that, my time is up. Let me pass the baton to Amy to discuss Azure VMware Solution. Amy?
Thanks, Jeff. Hi, I'm Amy Collier, a Senior Cloud Advocate at Microsoft, and I'm so excited today to talk to you about Azure VMware Solution. Microsoft provides a unified VMware software-defined data center, which is essentially VMware vSphere, VMware vSAN for storage, VMware NSX for networking, and also VMware HCX application mobility platform designed for simplifying application migrations and balancing workloads in your environment and cross-cloud and platforms. So here we have an example of an on-premises data center, which you're probably really familiar with. You have your VMware's technology stack. You can log into vCenter and see your ESXi host, your storage, your networking, and the VMs running underneath. To the right is essentially the same thing, but provided to you by Microsoft. In Azure, you have ESXi hosts running for you that you don't have to worry about patching or about outages, and they're hosting your environment, but you still have access to vCenter and all of your VMs. Also, now you get to benefit from the cloud because now you're on that Azure backbone where we offer Defender for Cloud, Azure Monitor, Azure Backup, and third-party apps like Neta files. Common use cases to migrate to Azure VMware Solution could be many different things. One is data center footprint reduction. Maybe you're running out of space. Maybe you need to reduce the size of your data center. You can simply migrate to AVS and have your environment running seamlessly in the cloud. Another opportunity is cloud bursting. Maybe you're a seasonal environment, or maybe you're just getting more demand and you don't want to buy into another host on premises. You can easily go into the Azure portal and add a host as that demand is increased. When the workload decreases, simply remove that node, and then you don't have to pay for that host anymore. And if you're in a time crunch, it's very easy to migrate your VMs as is because you have HCX to simply vMotion your environment into the cloud. A very important reason I see is disaster recovery and business continuity. Having a DR plan is really important, and now you can use Azure VMware Solution as your target to fail over to, or even run it as your primary data center and fail back to on-premises. As I mentioned before, you get familiar tools that your system engineers are already using. They're using the HTML client to log into vCenter to manage the hosts and VMs. They're using NSX for the network. They're using vSAN for storage. So you can leverage existing skill sets without worrying about learning about cloud skills. And you can easily scale, and it's flexible. You can seamlessly manage your Azure infrastructure resources throughout the Azure portal. You can add that host on demand and remove it when the demand lowers and reduce your cost. You can add and delete new clusters as required. We have a minimum of 3 nodes per cluster, a max of 16 nodes in a cluster, and then a maximum of 96 nodes in a vSphere software-defined data center. So you have Azure options for VMware. Your migration strategy might be a lift and shift and migrate VMware as is, utilizing your existing subscriptions and licensing and leveraging that same skill set that you have on premises. Or you're just quickly migrating your data center into the cloud. Or another option, which is really great, is starting to learn about Azure. You already have AVS up and running, but now you can leverage things like Azure Arc and see what's inside your AVS VMs and on premises. So you can have everything in the Azure portal. And as you get even more familiar with that, maybe you decide to bring in Azure Files to store a file system instead of using vSAN Data Store, because now you don't need to add a host for extra storage. You can also use PaaS services and migrate your SQL database out of AVS and maybe into a SQL managed instance. So there are many options to start refactoring and modernizing your environment. We also offer Azure Hybrid Benefit, which you can utilize for Windows to save costs. You bring your on-prem licenses into the cloud. This is also available for SQL, so you can save on your SQL licensing as well. There is also extended security updates. So when you migrate into the cloud, you have extended updates for your Windows operating systems and SQL software. We also have up to 3-year for reserved instances of AVS, where you can lock in pricing at a greatly reduced rate and have no surprises at the end of your billing cycle. And now I'm going to show you how Azure NetApp Files works with Azure VMware Solution by adding storage without having to add another ESXi host. So here I am in the Azure portal, and I need to create an Azure NetApp File account. So I'm going to go over to Azure NetApp Files and go to Create, enter in a name, my account, select my resource group, and it's creating. We'll go to my resource and see if my account is there. So I'll go back to Azure NetApp Files. And there's my account. And now I can create my data store. But as you can see, you can create Active Directory connections. So if you want to use an SMB share, you can also do that. We also offer NFS and Dual, which is it allows SMB and NFS. So I'm going to go to the capacity pool now and create my pool of disks. Give that a name. This also has different tiers. There's a premium tier, ultra tier, but I'm going to stick with the premium service level tier. And you can have QoS enabled. And here we have my pool. So now I can create a volume. I'm going to add my volume here, give it a name, give it a quota of 100 gig. And now I have to pick my dedicated virtual network for ANF. Keep everything to standard, and then we'll go to the protocol. Here you can see NFS, SMB, or dual protocol. I'm going to stick with NFS and use version 3. Here you can enable LDAP as well, but here you can see the Unix permissions. I'm going to review and create. And now it's complete. I'm going to go to my resource. So now you can mount the file system using these instructions on your Linux VM running in AVS. And also note that you can create data stores for ESXi hosts using Azure NetApp Files. Thanks for joining me today. I hope you learned a lot about AVS. Back to you, Jeff and Roshni.
Thank you, Amy. Now, we talked a lot about security earlier. With this, we do want to remind you that one of the best ways to maximize security is to ensure that your physical servers and software is up to date. To this end, we want to remind everyone about the Windows Server 2012 end of support happening on October 10th, 2023. End of support is when a version is no longer supported with security updates, which usually happens after 10 years, per our lifecycle policies. We want to thank our customers for their investment in Windows Server 2012, and we want to outline the options to meet you where you are in your cloud journey. If migrating to Azure, you can simply move your apps running on Windows Server 2012 and 2012 R2 as is, and get 3 more years of security updates for free. This includes the Azure destinations such as Azure VMs, Azure VMware Solution, Dedicated Host, and Azure Stack HCI. This buys you more time to work on upgrading or modernizing your applications in the cloud to manage services such as App Service or SQL managed instance to never patch again. If staying on premises, we recommend upgrading to the most current releases of Windows Server and SQL Server. Finally, if you cannot meet the deadline, you can buy extended security updates to keep the remaining servers protected until you can get them upgraded. To make it easier to monitor and deploy your ESUs, you can seamlessly get the ESUs by connecting your on-premise servers to Azure Arc, providing more visibility across your estate and easily extend cloud-native security and governance to your hybrid and multi-cloud environments. We've shared a lot of information with you today, and we appreciate the time you've spent with us. Here are the top 3 takeaways we want to leave you with. Be sure to utilize Microsoft Defender and Microsoft Sentinel for Cloud to protect your environment in Azure as well as hybrid and multi-cloud scenarios. Be sure to connect your on-premises and multi-cloud Windows servers to Azure Arc to unify them in a single pane of glass and get centralized visibility, governance, and security. And finally, be sure to choose the right Azure destination for Windows Server that maximizes your existing team skills. If you're running VMware, Azure VMware solution is the best and easiest option available to adopt. We want to thank you again for joining us. This concludes the session today.